to erase the lead. Because, again, they scored 47 points and still lost by 15. You know what I mean? That's how good South Carolina played in the first half. And you talk about Colin Murray-Boyles, and we've talked about it. Coach Paris talked about it. Taking command, being that selfish guy. Because, look, you're the best player on this team. If this team did not have Colin Murray-Boyles, they probably would have lost a lot more than what they've lost this season by a substantial amount. They wouldn't have been in a lot of those games against better teams in the SEC early on in conference play. Sometimes your best player just has to go out there and take over. And in the first half, he went out there and took it over. You talk about Trey Johnson making pretty much all the shots, Trey Johnson and Kent making most of the shots for Texas. Colin Murray-Boyles attempted 14 shots in the first half. Carolina as a team attempted 31. Made 7 shots in the first half. The entire team only made 12. So again, he was the offense and the defense as well. Talk about those blocks too in the entire first half. He really took the game over for those first 20 minutes.
This is what Lamont Paris has wanted all season. And, you know, he's even said it, like, he's okay with CMB taking 20-plus shots a game, and the rest of the team is okay with that too. But he's such a nice and selfless player that it's like he's looking for guys in these open looks, and he can create passes that not every, forward can. And, it's not an issue at all. The problem is it's not his fault at all. It's the fact that he'll pass the guys wide open, and, it's never a guarantee they're going to make it. More times than not, these guys brick on open shots. So that's what is the issue. Otherwise, his assist numbers would be through the roof. But in games like this where the spacing on the floor kind of allows for him to do his thing, he can go out there and just make things happen on his own. And that's what we saw in that first half. And he didn't have that. I mean, he was still good in the second half, but obviously he was kept in check a little bit more, and he fouled out. But overall, great night for him. Another double-double. And, again, those 3 blocks, man, those were NBA caliber blocks, too. Like, I was, like, the atmosphere in the gym was just...
Yeah, and like you said, fouled out in the second half, only played 11 minutes there, but kind of played to the way that we wanted him to play throughout the entire season, especially knowing he's the best player on the court for South Carolina at least. And he finally was able to debunk something that's been going on through conference play, or really this entire season, is when Colin Murray-Boyles plays 30 minutes or less, this team is losing by an average of like 20 points. Well, Saturday, he played 27 minutes because he fouled out in the second half, and they won by 15. So just a complete anomaly of a game, but a very well-deserved win. And, again, you feel happy for these guys, right? Because, again, they've gone through it. They've dealt with this for, again, a month and a half now, almost 2 full months of coming close, being close to knocking off tons of top 10 teams, especially at home, and just not being able to close the deal. They finally got it done in front of the home crowd. There wasn't enough people there to storm the court, but I'm sure they would have loved if that did happen, though don't think school wanted to pay the fine for that. But still, just a little bit of a weight lifted off your shoulders for what has become a lost season. But again, being able to say, hey, we're at worst 1-17 as opposed to 0-18 is better.
There's a huge difference between saying you're 0-18 and being a part of history for all the wrong reasons. Like, you'd be the 3rd team in the SEC to ever go 0-18 in the conference slate, and you're not. It's a great thing to not be a part of that group. You still got a lot of work to do. I will say, though, I liked what LP had to say kind of at the end of his presser when it's like the last thing you remember moving into the next game is that you played pretty well and you were able to win. Hopefully, look, I know this season's kind of a wash, but hopefully South Carolina can kind of take this into the next game against Missouri. I know it's going to be tough. And try to do something in these next 4 games before the SEC tournament because, look, you get hot here, no one's going to want to play you in the conference tournament. And, look, I know South Carolina's odds of even making anything happen are minimal to none. But, hey, it is at least nice to see that they got to win here, and maybe they build on some momentum for next year.
I got to ask, since you were in attendance, did Rodney Terry seemed bothered by any horns down going on at CLA? Because you remember last year he went on the whole spiel about, well, that's not fair to our team and all that kind of stuff. I think it was against TCU or somebody last year. So he's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way since he did that. Yeah. Anytime you can throw horns down in his face, I always enjoy that.
Yeah, he got teed up, and he was good about answering questions though, media availability after. It's look, it's tough to wear it on the chin. Being a team that lost by 15 points to the worst team in the SEC, and by the way, Texas is on the bubble. They are in the last 4 byes as of right now. That loss
that hurts your resume.
Oh, yeah.
I think it only qualifies as a quad 2, but let's be honest, a team that hadn't won a game in SEC play, that's probably going to ding you a little bit more than it usually would.
No, I mean, that one it's going to hurt really bad. And, yeah, I mean, look, it's a great win for South Carolina, a very bad loss for Texas.
We'll hear a little bit of what Lamont Paris had to say after the game coming up as we continue to look back on finally winning for men's basketball over the weekend, taking down Texas. It is the Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Beltry, along with you on your Monday here on the game. Tyler Head here once again telling you about our friends over at Twin Peaks. No one does happy hour quite like Twin Peaks. Whatever your preference, they have everything from tequila cocktails and an extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits and cocktails served over ice balls, local craft beers, and handcrafted whiskey cocktails round out an adventurous drink menu that is truly second to none. But it doesn't stop there because, of course, you've got plenty of amazing food as well. And this time of year, there's really no better time to be over at Twin Peaks because you've got baseball going on, you've got hockey going on, you've got basketball going on, tournaments coming up here in a couple weeks, and no better place taking all that amazing action with literal TVs as far as the eye can see on every single wall. Though with our friends over at Twin Peaks, get down there, enjoy some delicious food, enjoy some amazing beverages, taking all the great sports action with Twin Peaks right down the street from us here in the Vista. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you on your Monday here on the game, recapping the first victory for Gamecock men's basketball of the SEC slate this season. Of course, we know this season's pretty much lost outside of going on a miracle run at the tournament here in a couple weeks. You're not going to be playing in the NCAA tournament. You're not going to the NIT. You're not going to do any of that. So for a lot of ways, you're already kind of turning your attention to next year, but this is something nice to have to at least be able to say, hey, we didn't go 0-18 in conference play. And I want you to, and you were there to hear it in person, I want you to listen to the relief in Coach Parris's voice as he opens up his press conference on Saturday, recapping the first victory of conference play.
All right. So all the players and all the coaches and are probably writing down all the things that they did differently today from their normal routine. Just used a different pillow when they went to bed last night. New pair of shoes. That's what I did today, actually. This is the first time wearing these shoes. So players probably did a lot of things too. I think everybody probably took note of those things. But anyway, feels good. Feels good for to see the guys be able to rejoice when they've been yearning to do this so many times. They've been on the doorstep so many times. It would be one thing if it just was, not playing well, can't get a win, but there's been so many games where the body of work has been worthy of winning. And then, some decisions, a ball bounces this way, a call goes that way, a shot doesn't go in, and then we end up in this spot. So extremely happy for them and really proud of who they have been during this stretch. It's been a hard stretch for them. They work hard every day. It's easy for young people. I mean, it probably always has been, but I think in 2025 we can acknowledge that it's we haven't handled, young people haven't handled discouragement and failure quite as much as they had when I was growing up or whenever. So it's new to them. Doesn't mean they're worse people or better people. It's just new to them. And so for them to continually have the energy, the effort, the belief that they have in anticipation of playing well and winning a game has been really impressive. And that's what I'm proudest or most proud of them for. So
you can hear the weight being lifted off his shoulder. And again, this is just one win. It doesn't mean that the season's suddenly saved or something like that. But, when he's sitting there in front of you guys, he does not have to answer the question of, hey, you guys going to win a game or not? Yeah.
I mean, look, it's no one, I think, wants to win more than LP does. And, he probably, I remember him mentioning, I don't think it was in that clip, but he was asked about, I can't remember what the question was, but it was like he's watched so much film to the point where it just became too much, where he just had to take a second to chill and go for a walk, do something that's not involving film, because he would break it down to the point where it's just you're trying to dissect every little thing to find something different to win. And it's been tough, man. This is a guy that was coach of the year last year in the SEC. And now and I think it's wrong. You got people out there, calling for his job and stuff. But, it's nice to see this, the weight lifted off his shoulder. Like you said, it's that sigh of relief that they keep talking about. It's a good feeling, and it's just one win. But, man, it does a lot for their for the state of the mind.
And I think about it from the perspective of the fan base, watching them come so close to beating so many good teams this year. It's if only a couple things go differently, if you don't turn the ball over, if you make these shots and all that kind of stuff, you could have 4, 5, maybe 6 wins in conference play against some pretty high-level opponents, and that bothers the fan base to a degree, but it's got to bother him that much more. And, like you said, he talked about, just being locked in the film room, basically trying to figure out what's going wrong and how to fix it, probably until he essentially drove himself crazy. Because it's one thing, if they were just getting beat by 30 points every single night, we'd be like, okay, this team's just not good. It's a bad year. We'll move on to the next one. But we were coming that close, and you're making mistakes in the last 3 to 4 minutes every single time. And I go back to the game against LSU last week where I thought I thought they'd given up in that game. That looked like a game they just weren't giving 100%, that they were just kind of folding, and I was kind of worried that was going to be for the rest of the season. And you could hear the frustration with him then, perhaps more than any other time so far through this, losing streak heading into Saturday, where he again reiterated, like, I'm not out there on the court. I can't go out there and make the plays. I just try and put these guys in the best position. And again, it's got to be driving them crazy. And maybe it was finally putting on the new shoes. As somebody that's very superstitious, I can appreciate changing up the feng shui a little bit. Look, I said for a while he should try abandoning the quarter zip for a night to see if it worked.
My God.
And now he kept it. So they won with the quarter zip, so don't have to abandon it, I guess. But I was willing to try anything just to get this team, something. And thankfully, maybe it's the shoes that were the difference there.
Yeah, the shoes, the lucky shoes. It's going to be a heck of a story if they finish out this season winning out, which would be pretty crazy, man. That'd be some really good wins right there. But again, it's nice for him to win, and I know for the players, it is.
Sure,
it's been brutal, man. They probably see what people think and say so much more than he does.
Totally.
Like he's a guy that could tune that stuff out. But for the kids in the teens or in their 20s, it's not easy. Like they hear what their friends are saying, and it's like
I never buy a 18 to 22-year-old saying I don't pay attention to what's happening on social media or what people are saying, because it's all around you. You can't avoid it. Maybe you're specifically not scrolling Twitter, but your friends are, and the people you're in class with. So you hear about this stuff sometimes secondhand. You know what's being said about you. You know what the perception of your team is, or you specifically as a player. You can't avoid it when you're in the mix with all these people every single day. So yeah, they've heard it, and yeah, they probably wanted to do something to correct that. Again, the season as a whole isn't suddenly saved, but again, you can at least say, hey, worst we're 1-17, and look, you've got 2 more home games against Arkansas and Georgia, teams that you could beat. Theoretically,
you can win these games.
You could win these games, and you could theoretically end up 3-15, which again, not great, but better than 0-18.
Yes, so much better. And here's a positive way to look at it. You win those games. You won 3 out of your last 5. That's
something.
That's something to build off of. And look, it's I don't think they're going to win these 2 road games. Quite honestly, I think Missouri at night, the Josh Gray, and by the way, I wonder how good Jordan Butler must be feeling right now.
Oh man,
Mr. Never have won an SEC game, but hey, finally got it last night. Or I'm sorry, the other day.
1-32
Unbelievable.
is now Jordan Butler's record in SEC competition.
And now he'll get to go play against Missouri, and it's the Josh Gray reunion game.
It's the trade.
The trade.
They basically traded him.
The trade. So, look, that game's going to be tough. Going to Tennessee to end the year is going to be dang near impossible, I think, to win that game. But look, try your best to win those 2 home games and then be competitive on the road. And I think you got a lot of people who are like, all right, see what happens in the SEC tournament. That's something to build on for next season with what I think is going to look like a completely different team in terms of the roster.
Yeah, again, it's going to be a long off season of making changes, trying to get things back on the right track. But at least for today, we're feeling good that they finally were able to win a game. And if you were at Colonial Life Arena on Saturday, you at least had a reason to smile as you were exiting, maybe even before the game ended.
Yes, I think it's a weight off literally anyone's shoulders that has watched this team for the last few months. Good to see them get the win.
By the way, that game tomorrow night against Missouri, 8:30 pregame for a 9 o'clock tip. Oh, I hate the 9 o'clock tips on weekdays. 9 o'clock tip. I'll be on here on the game in Columbia, as well as 100.3 the game out in Myrtle Beach. Carolina calls on Thursday, by the way, with Coach Paris at 6 o'clock as well. It is the Extra Point. Tyrod and Jack Beltry up next. Baseball still undefeated as they made their way past Milwaukee this past weekend. We'll dive into that next on your Monday here in the game.
0-1 to Woida. Lifted in the air, left field. Going back is Phillips at the wall. It's off the top of it. It's gone! Grand slam! Jace Woida, his first home run as a Gamecock, is a go-ahead long ball in the bottom of the sixth. 5-2 Gamecocks.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Monday on the Game. That was the call over the weekend with Jace Woida hitting the grand slam in Friday's game to help get the weekend started for the Gamecocks to once again pull off sweep as they take down Milwaukee in all three games, including a run roll yesterday to keep themselves undefeated at 8-0 on the season. By the way, we'll get into this in a second. Woida has impressed me a lot these first couple games. I didn't maybe have him on my bingo cards hitting the first grand slam, but Duke can put a charge into the ball.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, we hadn't really seen him do much offensively in the preseason or the fall or anything, but I think we all knew some of the swings he had taken. The power's there, right? Like he's a dude that can actually put some muscle into the ball and whatnot. But yeah, first grand slam of the year for the Gamecocks, and it's a big hit right there in a spot where you're down a run, your offense isn't really doing much, and you're down 2-1 in the late innings. You need a big hit, and they got it. So good for Woida to take advantage of his opportunity as he gets the start at DH on Friday.
By the way, we have returned with our Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway for if a Gamecock batter hits a grand slam, you could win cash. The pot's going to go up $25 every single game. We actually did have this going on Friday when this happened. So somebody won $150 earlier on this morning. That money will reset starting with the Gardner-Webb game coming up tomorrow. So the next time a Gamecock batter hits a grand slam this season, you could win all the money in the pot. Just go to 1075thegame.com to register. And, you know, you talk about being down 2-1. Getting that obviously helped, propel South Carolina to that win. To be 8-0, they faced these pockets of adversity, I guess is the best way to put it, where, nothing's gone disastrously wrong in any one particular game, but they found themselves, be a little bit cold at the plate at times and needing to put a rally together to be able to pick up a win, and that was the case on Friday as well, finally getting that grand slam to help propel them to the win. But, I think about everything that Paul Mainieri says after these games, and it's like every single one of these games is a learning lesson. It's a learning tool. Say, yes, I know we're not playing the best competition, but we're putting ourselves in these situations that's going to benefit us down the line, and this is the latest example of that.
Yeah, again, they're not dominating teams, if that makes sense. They only have 2 run rule wins so far this year, and otherwise they've had a lot of tightly contested games where they've had to come through with the big hit or the big strikeout, something in the game to kind of flip the momentum and go on the way to get a win. That's fine, in my opinion. I asked him about that last week at his media availability, kind of what's kind of your thoughts on winning a lot of these close games and stuff? And he brought up a very interesting point. What do you learn exactly from winning 15-0 over some random team, some Joe Schmo team? What do you learn from just dominating a team that you're supposed to dominate, right? As opposed to 2-1 Friday night, you get the big grand slam, you get a really good bullpen outing. You learn a lot about your team in those types of moments. That SEC play is going to be like that every weekend, where you're going to be in these tight-knit battles and you got to find a way to come through. And they've had to already do that so many times this year that I think it's going to serve them super well when they get here down the stretch.
And he's talked about wanting to continue to string together quality at bats. And let's just go back to Friday. Had a very strong bottom of the second inning, but from when Nolan Naraki hit his sac fly to drive in a runner, they did not get another hit. And that was the bottom of the second, not get another hit until the bottom of the sixth inning with Nathan Hall getting on base. That obviously led to the Woida grand slam, and then didn't really do a whole lot after that. Same thing on Saturday, had a very strong bottom of the second inning, but outside of Petrie's homer in the bottom of the fifth, very few and far between when it came to stringing hits together. Sunday, 13 hits on the day, obviously scored 14 runs. Best marks of the entire season so far. Was the first day where they finally just strung together a quality bat after quality of bat, and obviously you got 14 runs out of it.
And coincidentally enough, the weather finally looked much more akin to, it wasn't super warm out, but it was warm enough for the ball to start flying off the bat. And look, it was only a matter of time, I think, before, if they continued to hit the ball hard like they've been doing all year, eventually it was either going to leave the yard or find holes where the defense wasn't. And that's exactly what we saw yesterday. I mean, you see it right out of the gate with Blake Jackson and Ethan Petrie hitting absolute missiles into right center field for back-to-back RBI doubles. And then you get the 2 homers. I mean, Nolan Naraki hammered that hanging curveball. I mean, my gosh. I mean, that was demolished. And then Ryan Bakes, who really had a nice game yesterday, took full advantage of his opportunity to hit a long home run, too. So, overall, the bats were really solid yesterday. The other thing is, you had a very different looking lineup in there.
Yeah, they really mixed things up a lot yesterday. I know, obviously, Kazmar has not given you the production at the plate that you want. Very good shortstop.
Very good defense.
But the production has not been there at the plate, so kind of mix him up, moving him out of that 2-hole. They've really, and I know you asked Coach Maneri about this, they've really experimented with that 2-hole spot in the lineup so far through 8 games.
Yeah, Henry has been, struggling for sure. His defense has looked so much better this year. Absolutely. Like, he looks great at shortstop. It's just the bat hasn't come along yet, though I think he'll be fine. But, yeah, like, he's rotated that 2 spot. I mean, it's been Kazmar, Dalton Mayshore, Blake Jackson yesterday. You're trying to find that right guy to kind of go between the leadoff man, Hall, and then your middle of the order with Petrie, Jones, guys like that.
Well, you think about, okay, your leadoff guy needs somebody that needs to get on and be able to move around the base path. That second guy is somebody that can move him around the bases. And if you're not putting the ball in play, if you're not getting quality at bats at number 2, then you're probably going to be moved elsewhere. And again, they dropped Kazmar to the bottom of the lineup on Saturday, I guess it was.
They've done that a few times this year because they moved Mayshore up to the 2-hole, I want to say last weekend, and then they moved Kazmar down to 7, and they gave him the day off yesterday. Maneri said he had his best batting practice session, which is a really nice thing to see, of course. Now you got to go out there and do it in game. We'll see what happens, but I think Kazmar's fully capable of being a top-of-the-order bat for this team.
If we had to give out an MVP for yesterday's game, how about our guy Will Tippett?
Ah, man.
Let's go back to last season. Is there anybody more streaky than Will Tippett, good and bad, where he can have a couple games in a row where he's getting on base and he's hitting the ball, and then he may go 3 or 4 games without according a single hit. Yesterday, 4 for 5 with an RBI. That was about as best as you'll see Will Tippett play.
Streaky's definitely one way to put it, but I'll tell you what, the weather's heating up. It's there's this running joke in the Gamecock baseball beat that it's the summer of Tippett. It's something that we came up with last year, but look, the ball's flying out of the yard. That's when he's at his best, right? Is when the weather's a little bit warmer. And look, in all seriousness though, he had a great game yesterday, 4 for 5. He is fully capable of doing stuff like this regularly. It's just, is he going to be able to do it? And also, he's kind of in a corner where he's not starting regularly, but he's a guy that can definitely go out there and be a super utility guy and go play wherever. So It's good to see him have a great day yesterday. Honestly, had the best game of anyone, leading the way with 4 hits. And again, that's a really nice positive to see when your other shortstop is struggling.
I'm looking at the weather, by the way. Tomorrow it is going to be a high of 70 degrees. And then this upcoming weekend, highs all in the 60s.
Yeah.
So
plays well for South Carolina to do
plays
some
well
offense.
for Carolina and maybe well for Will Tippett once again as well.
Yeah, so hopefully with the weather warming up, the ball continues to fly off the bats. And I know the competition's really going to pick up this weekend, but again, it's a great opportunity to see where your team is at in general after this weekend.
Yeah, and look, you have guys, we just mentioned Kazmar a moment ago, Talmadge LeCroy as well, who got the day off from catching yesterday in favor of Ryan Bakes. But both those guys are still searching to kind of get it in gear at the plate.
Yeah, Talmadge has definitely struggled a lot, but Maneri continues to show confidence in him as the starting catcher moving forward. Not Ryan Bakes. Max Coffer's supposed to catch on Tuesday, and then we'll see what happens with LeCroy after that. I got to say, though, Ryan Bakes really, seriously, the home run he hit, that's a great swing off the bat. He looks fine defensively behind the plate. I know it's early, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him get some more reps at catcher over LeCroy if this little skid continues.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in regards to that. Also, some news on the pitching front, which we'll get into coming up next as the Gamecocks get set to have a pretty big series this weekend, taking on Clemson between here and in the upstate as well. It is the Extra Points Hour, and Jack Beltry along with you on your Monday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's our Edge, Jack Belcher, along with you here on your Monday. Talking Gamecock baseball as they remain undefeated, 8-0 to start the season in the first year of the Paul Mainieri era. Talked about offense there in that last segment. Another great, solid weekend for pitching. We'll say great because compared to what it was the weekend prior, it was not perfect, especially when you talk about starting pitching where you look at Dylan Eskew and Jake McCoy having rougher outings. Now, we do know that Eskew is dealing with an injury as of right now, but he really could not find that rhythm on Friday. Only made it through 2 full innings for Pitzer had to come in and do a lot of heavy work in that middle relief. And then Jake McCoy just kind of had a rough second inning yesterday. So the starting pitching wasn't exactly what you wanted from the weekend, but they still found a way to win.
Yeah, like you can take a lot of positives away from it. Like Matthew Becker only made 1 mistake and was otherwise.
He was phenomenal.
Like he hasn't issued a single walk throughout this season so far. So very good command from him. Speaking of command, McCoy and Eskew kind of struggled with it a little bit. Like Eskew just could not find the zone at all. It reminded me a lot of last year when you would see him maybe get a start, get through the order once, and then it's like, okay, the wheels start to fall off. And, that was kind of what we saw the other day where he just could not locate the zone in the first inning. And that kind of set the tone for his day. And you hope he's going to be all right and healthy because you're going to need him, definitely. And you're going to need him to pitch a lot better, too. And then McCoy, he pitched well. It's just he didn't give you more length than he probably could have. 4 innings, 76 pitches, I think. And, he had 8 strikeouts, but he also had 3 walks and 2 hit by pitches. So, and he gave up the 3-run homer, too. So he's going to be fine, I think, moving forward. He's still got some of the best stuff on the team. I mean, he's electric when he zips that fastball in there. But, man, you need a little bit more from your other 2 starters.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, and Mainieri talked about this yesterday, rhomboid strain for Dylan Eskew, so his status is a little bit up in the air as of right now. This is something that's going to derail him by any means, but it does seem like Jake McCoy may be moving up a day to potentially start on Saturday against Clemson with the hope that Eskew might be available and healthy enough when Sunday rolls around.
Yeah, so from what Mainieri basically said yesterday, it does seem like McCoy would start Saturday, Becker would start Friday, and I think that honestly works better because the way the series shakes out, you go to Clemson game 1, you go to Greenville game 2, you're back at home game 3. Eskew pitched at Clemson last year, started that game, struggled, and I think coming back from an injury, that's going to be tough to go on the road and try to pitch well against that type of lineup that is going to be good this year because Clemson's a solid team. And I think Becker is the one that could definitely weather that storm the best considering he's pitched better than anyone on this team. And he's a veteran. He's been there, done that. And then you got McCoy Saturday. We'll see what happens Sunday. Again, it's going to really depend on what happens these next few days. But you hope he's back, but I think you also have some really nice back pocket options that could start on Sunday, worst case.
Well, the bullpen came in clutch once again on the weekend, and we hope that's going to continue to be a strength for the staff. Also, a lot of dazzling plays out in the field as well on defense. Cut number 15, Dave. Coach Mainieri talking yesterday about the pride in the defense that he's seen so far.
Yes, John, and I do. I have incredibly high expectations for defense because I have incredibly high expectations for pitching. And you can't expect your team to pitch well unless you play good defense behind them. And we work hard on it. And I think if you go back and listen to my introductory press conference, I talked about defense. And, it's kind of been a hallmark of most of the teams that I've coached throughout my career. It's something that I think is an important aspect of the game. And, if you look at yesterday, the first pitch of the game, the hitter for Milwaukee had a missile in the hole, and Kaz backhanded it and threw the guy out. If he doesn't make that play, think of how different the inning develops. And, and it's not just one position, it's every position.
And he referenced Kazmar making that play at the jump. You had Jackson and Petrie with a couple nice diving catches. Scobie continuing to play well at third base, firing some rockets across the infield there. Then Jordan Carrion with maybe the play of the weekend on that stab at third on the line drive. And just the most, when you do that, you just want to look like as nonchalant as possible to kind of play it off cool. But he had to be in doing cartwheels in his mind after pulling that off.
That was a great play. That's one that is definitely worthy of going on SportsCenter top 10 for sure. That was a great play. And seriously, all weekend, the web gems were just through the roof, honestly. And I think the defense of anything that we've seen improve this year, it's it's got to be the defense. Like, number one for sure, because defense cost you wins last year, and it's giving you a chance in every game this year.
Yeah, is it 2 errors through 8 games so far?
So you had 2 the other day, and then you had 2 more against Queens. And again, I chalked the other.
That weather was miserable.
That weather was terrible.
Listen, again, Petri, a guy from Florida, over there at first base, took the one off the hip. I don't count that one against him because he was clearly miserable in the cold. And again, they don't put an asterisk next to those things in the record book. But on normal weather days, I don't think those kind of things happen. And again, like you said, for as many times as the errors reared their ugly head a season ago, I think we're off to a much more solid start this year. And I put a lot of that on Scobie at third base, where again that was just a consistent issue a season ago in the hot corner. And this guy, is a true freshman, is just playing outstanding out there, and he's fun to watch.
He gives you a quiet confidence that anytime a ball's hit his way, he's going to be able to make the play. And I think you could say that honestly about every position on this defense, infield, outfield, wherever. There have been a few times where they haven't been in the right position to make a play. Like, there's been a few errors like that this year. But overall, man, it's a night and day difference. You're not worried every single time at third base when, oh my God, the ground ball's coming your way. Like, is Scobie going to make the play? Like, you have that PTSD from last year.
Defense is something in baseball you don't talk about until it's going wrong. Because, again, if everything's routine, you're getting your outs, you're catching your pop flies, all those kind of things, throwing ours out, it's not a concern and we don't talk about it. When it's an issue is when we talk about it. So, again, we're seeing a nice difference from a year ago that hopefully continues as we get into conference play.
Absolutely. Things are rolling right now, 8-0, and good weekend all around.
Next game coming up against Gardner-Webb tomorrow night, and then in action against Clemson this upcoming weekend. So we'll talk plenty about that as the week rolls along. This is The Extra Point. It's our Ed and Jack Veltri along with you on your Monday here on The Game.
Any ad reads? Sweet.
10 o'clock. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Sam Shapiro hanging out here as he does each and every Monday. Sam, we're feeling good today. It was a successful weekend on all fronts for Gamecock sports. Baseball still undefeated. Softball still undefeated. Women's basketball took care of business yesterday. And finally, the long nightmare has come to an end as South Carolina men's basketball, finally ended their long losing streak on Saturday night against Texas.
Yeah, I think we kind of celebrated a little bit. We were both talking about, they actually got an SEC conference win.
Yeah, well, look, we were all waiting for it to go sideways, right? You're watching the game, checking the score, whatever it may be. Okay, got a good lead. All right, still got a good lead. 5 minutes to go. What's going to go wrong? Where's the train going to come off the track? We've seen it with turnovers, with missed free throws, whatever it may be. We've seen this team blow games 6 ways from Sunday, and you don't like to be pessimistic. But we've seen something happen enough times, you say, okay, what goes wrong this time? And thankfully for them, nothing went wrong, and they were able to pull away with the 15-point win.
And maybe a testament to that is also just because, we were kind of talking about the difficulty with some of these SEC teams and how strong they've been over the last couple of years, just how this conference has become a basketball conference over the last couple of years. You even look at some of their schedule early on, and it didn't even seem like South Carolina was dropping a lot of these easy games. But, in conference play is really where they've been kind of bogged up all season.
Yeah, and that's what makes this season so frustrating, because it's one thing if you're just losing every game by 20 points, you're just getting beaten to a pulp, and you say, okay, well, this team's just not good enough to compete in this league. And I think that would make the losing streak they had up to this point easier to swallow. But when you were coming as close as you were coming, and you were making it as close as you were against Auburn, against Florida, against all these really highly ranked teams, some of the best in the entire country, then you're like, oh, we're right there. What's going wrong to where we can't get over this hump? And look, Texas isn't a top 10 team. Texas right now is on the bubble for the NCAA tournament, but going out there and playing a complete game for 40 minutes, you were truly the better team than Texas was. That makes this win feel all the more better, obviously, but also you say, man, where's this been for all these other games that we could have won where, nobody would say, oh, well, suddenly you're going to be, having 10 wins in conference play, but you could at least realistically have 4, 5, maybe 6 wins at this point, which would put you in conversation to being in the tournament given how good the SEC is this year.
Yeah, and you got to even have almost a worse taste in your mouth. Even looking at that game from Florida, you had mentioned some of those early games. It was maybe 1 or 2 points decided. That first matchup they had with Florida in January on the 22nd, it was only decided by 1 point.
Well, and they led that game for 39 minutes and 59 seconds seemingly, and didn't lose until the very last second. So it's things like that. They're like, just figure out these small issues and start winning, and they haven't been able to do that until Saturday.
And then kind of adding on to that more, then you fast forward a month later when they play again and they're losing by 20 points, it's even more of an, it's like, didn't you go back and watch the film? And I was listening to you and Jack this morning and talk about how LP had just been watching so much film this season.
Driving himself crazy.
Yeah.
As you would if you're a coach.
So, when you're, the first game's decided by a point, a month later, then it's 20 points. You kind of can't blame them.
Yeah, no, and look, this doesn't mean this season's saved. You're not suddenly going to get in the tournament or anything like that, barring a run in the SEC tournament. But for at least a day, for at least a period of time, you can celebrate. You can have a reason to smile, reason to feel happy, because we haven't had that for the past 2 months with this team.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it was a weight off of the shoulders, at least, of this team, just because I think if they had went the entire season without winning a conference game, that would kind of, I don't know, maybe it'd light a fire under them for next season, but even still, you want to at least win one conference game. It's
embarrassing. It's a mark that very few teams have done in the SEC. Missouri did it last year. Vanderbilt did it a couple years ago. But to be marked as, you went 0-18. You couldn't win a single conference game. It's embarrassing. Now, Missouri has rebounded because they went 0-18 last year and legitimately one of the better teams in the SEC this year. So it proves that a turnaround can't happen, but you don't want to be saddled with that as a reputation for your team. And now, again, they've still got a couple more games to play and could realistically maybe win a couple more to avoid going 1-17. But 1-17 is still better than 0-18 at the end of the day to me. One of the big reasons why Carolina was so successful on Saturday night was Colin Murray-Boyles and the tremendous first half that he had, scoring 16 points, making 7 to 14 shots from the field. Coach Paris talked after the game, cut number 5 here, Dave, about Colin Murray-Boyles and his assertiveness in that first half.
Yeah, I did. I thought he was being really aggressive. That was generation of offense. That was to a T. That was us having our offense generated by and large by Colin Murray-Boyles, which is, I said coming into the season that would be the biggest challenge. It wouldn't be what did he average. Can he score 17 points? This guy's very talented. He can score 17 in any system, in any game. He can score 17. But what does it look like to score 17 when you have to generate the offense and they're going to send a couple guys at you? They sent 3 guys at him at times tonight. Like, then what does that look like? And this was a good example of him being able to do that. And the floor was really spread. I thought in the first half especially, we got to some really spread situations which allowed him, and he opted in instead of opting out from scoring. He opted in and attacked really hard. His moves were aggressive. This was some of the most efficient moves. He's tried to attack the basket before, and some of them haven't been as efficient. They were strong moves. He was on balance. He finished through contact multiple times. They went to the zone. And then that was when it really, that actually really spaced it even more. We threw it to him in the middle of the floor, and he was really making some good decisions and some good plays, mainly for himself. But he's so unselfish that he's always going to be looking for other guys when they're out there too. But I thought he did a good job of keeping his foot on the gas pedal and generating offense for his team.
It goes without saying he's the best player on this team, and that's something that not Paris has been frustrated about, but a point that he's made through a lot of these games this year is sometimes he just needs to be selfish. And then you commend him for trying to be a team guy, trying to want to pass the ball, get to his teammates and stuff like that. But, like, dude, you're the best player on the court for this team. Sometimes you just got to go out there and take over. And I feel like what we saw in the first 20 minutes on Saturday was really that for one of the first times this season where he's just like, I'm the guy. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to take shots. I'm going to grab rebounds. And again, 16 points on 7 of 14 shooting in the first half, grabbed 8 boards, only played 11 minutes in the second half because he was in foul trouble and eventually fouled out. But, like, that's what you want to see out of Colin Murray-Boyles, and lo and behold, the team won a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had been talking about for weeks that, we kind of wanted him to kind of step into a more selfish role, be a little bit more dominant, and kind of take strides to, get into the basket. And he was definitely, bruising, especially in that first half, making some of those dominant plays down low. And I think that was a big driving force for this game. But I mean, 8 consecutive games with 20-plus points. This was his second double-double in a row. So I think this was just kind of almost a homecoming for, the type of player we've kind of wanted him to kind of turn into as the season's kind of progressed. But right. I think there's still more room for him to be that dominant centerpiece of this team.
And I want to give him a lot of credit because, look, depending on where you look, he's projected to be a first-round pick. I got one pulled up here, projected to go number 18 to the Heat. So a first-round guy, not a lottery pick, but a first-round guy nonetheless. And when you're on a team that's essentially not playing for anything, the season's pretty much lost at this point. Could they go on a miracle run in Nashville and win the SC tournament? Technically, yes. I'm not counting that happening. So you're not really playing for a whole lot. For him to not check out, right? For him to not just say, you know what, I'm going to go through the motions, or I don't want to risk hurting myself for the draft or anything like that. To continue to play aggressively and at a high level on what is a lost cause of a team at this point in time, I give him a lot of credit. And again, he's a team guy, very unselfish in a lot of ways, which can be detrimental on the basketball court at times, but definitely the kind of guy you want in your locker room in other ways. So I give him a lot of credit for not just saying, season's over, I'm going to go ahead and back off the gas pedal a little bit here because it's not going to benefit me.
I definitely agree with you there, but I also kind of I go back and forth because I do like the dominance aspect, especially because this Gamecocks team I feel like has needed it at least on the offensive front. But I do like the unselfish play just because a lot of NBA teams are going to be looking at that. Just they want to make sure that if they're drafting somebody that is of talent like Murray Boyles, that if they're going to need to take a step back or take a shift in what their role is for that team. In this case, you brought up that the Heat wanted them. He would probably have to change his game a little bit up, but even with that team specifically, I could see him playing maybe like a 3-4, that team playing big going forward. I think he would work pretty well with that Heat team if he got drafted 18.
Yeah, and we'll see. Again, you kind of see him bounce around the bottom part of that first round for the draft coming up here in a couple weeks. Again, I'm not outside of some huge NIL deal getting struck. I don't expect him to come back to South Carolina, but hey, crazier things could happen. But for the time being, assuming that he's going to move on, give him credit for continuing to play hard and play at a high level, and again, be the reason why this team was able to win that game the other night.
Well, I know one thing's for sure. If assuming he is going to declare for the draft, this Gamecock team is really going to miss his absence next fall and winter because he hasn't only been a prowess, in terms of scoring, but in terms of rebounding as well. He's just been a brute force, really helping down low.
And you're not going to be guaranteed to have that kind of guy every single year. A couple years ago, they had Gigi Jackson, which Gigi was still maturing through that season, so he didn't yield the results that I think a lot of people wanted. But you've seen the high level of production from Colin Murray Boyles for the better part of the year and a half that he's basically played for this team up to this point. And again, you don't know if you're going to have that guy next year. Look, Cam Scott was a highly touted guy coming in, but he's not shown you the production you wanted through his first season so far. Can another offseason of development help that and get him to a different point? We'll see. Is the offseason going to be where South Carolina goes out there and finds somebody special in the transfer portal to fill that role that Colin Murray Boyles is leaving behind? We're going to have to see that as well. So there's a lot of questions to be answered about this team, not only over the course of the next couple weeks, but over the course of the entire offseason. But for now, again, just trying to enjoy what was finally a victory, to say, hey, you're not going to go 0-18 in conference play. That, at least in the moment, feels good.
I'm hoping that at least with Columbia, Missouri, they're going to be on the road. I'm hoping that when the Gamecocks host Georgia and Arkansas for their last 2 home games of the season, they can at least pick those ones up for the home crowd.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit of that coming up next, as well as let's hear a little bit more from Lamont Paris on how the team's feeling coming off of that victory. It is the Extra Point. It's our head and Sam Shapiro along with you here on your Monday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Sam Shapiro along with you here on your Wednesday. It's Monday. We're reacting to the Gamecock basketball victory over the weekend, taking down Texas 84-69, first win in conference play. And look, I won't lie, there was a part of me, as well as they played against ranked teams and all that kind of stuff, that was afraid they were going to go 0-18. And I go back to the LSU game last week where I think they quite frankly embarrassed themselves in that game, because as bad as LSU is, they should not have looked that uncompetitive. And I thought they really gave up at that point in time. I thought against LSU they gave up, and that was where the season was just going to go completely off the rails. They were going to get obliterated in their last couple games. But give them credit. Came out there on Saturday night, looked a whole lot better, and finally got the win to at least be able to say, hey, we're not going to go defeated in conference play.
Yeah, and, a lot of it also was, I thought this team also spread the ball pretty well across the offense. You had 4 guys that, scored in double figures. One of those guys being Jamari Thompson. He didn't really shoot very well from the field, but, he shot 12 from 13 from the free throw line, and I know a lot of the games they consistently, for the most part, shoot about 80% from the free throw line, but the fact that he only missed 1 free throw was definitely, having guys like that kind of throughout this offense really made the difference maker, especially in the first half of this team.
Let's hear a little bit more from Lamont Paris and what he had to say after this game, talking about keeping the spirits high of the team as well as his through the onslaught that was that losing streak. Cut number 7, Dave.
Yeah, one thing is, I keep things in perspective. There are a lot of people. I got a lot of text messages, and some of them I look at and I think it's like there are a lot of people going through some real things in life, and so while you pour a lot into this, a lot, it's not. No one's dying because of this. No, so I try to keep things in perspective. That's one thing. But I will admit, there's been sometimes an probably unhealthy level of breaking film down to the nth degree. There's got to be something else in there. You have your normal way of doing things. This is what this is, and this should yield these results. And then when that's not happening, or you're going through something like this, you're diving deeper, and then you're diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's honestly, so you got to take some walks and listen to music, or you have to get out of it. You have to get out of it, otherwise you'll go crazy doing it. And so, and I have been able to do that recently. In these last couple of games, I have stopped trying to do that as much, and then just go back to the things that These aren't guesses. Like you said, I've been around a lot of winning. These things are the things. And, as guys pick them up, great. If they don't, we'll have some struggles here and there. But, and my staff, I've also, I've tried hard to be as positive as I can. And I'm generally a positive person. But there's probably also some times that they hear from me as we're doing this, and I give them a lot of credit for putting up with me on a day-to-day basis. But I got good staff, and so it's good. It's nice to get to that point, and then just start just worrying about getting another win. 2 starts with 1.
2 does start with 1, and again, being potentially 1-17 is a whole lot better than being 0-18. And again, we played it earlier about him talking about being locked in the film room and just trying to figure out what was going wrong. And for somebody like Lamont Paris that knows how to win, won at Chattanooga, obviously took this team to the tournament a year ago, had been around a lot of winning when he was at Wisconsin under, Bo Ryan. He knows what winning looks like, and I'm sure he sees the winning potential in this team, but continue to come up short time and time again was probably making him pull his hair out. You know what I mean? And trying to find where the fix was probably keeping him up at night, like I said, to go on walks and listen to music and all that kind of stuff to kind of, take a breather from watching all that film. And again, Saturday was the best game they played the entire season, or at least one of the best games they played the entire season, certainly the best they played in conference play, to where, with how much they dominated in the first half, that the fact that Texas, barely outplayed them in the second half. Didn't matter, and they still won by 15.
Yeah, and I think kind of what you were talking about, when watching film and leaving the, going on walks and taking breaks, kind of just helps ground that perspective back to normal. You can kind of, like he was saying, when you watch too much film, you can kind of get lost in it and go crazy. And I think that when you kind of just take the perspective of, okay, this is how we need to move forward. I mean, now you have this one win. You're looking at the perspective of, you got 4 more games left. Let's see how we can kind of make the best of this, because you win all 4 conference games throughout the rest of the year. People are going to be talking about this team a lot differently than they are right now, even though, they do win those games, nothing really happens.
It gives you a chance to finish on a strong note.
Mm-hmm.
You beat Texas. Look, I don't think they're going to beat Missouri. I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee. Those are 2 ranked teams, and they have to go on the road for those games. But Arkansas has lost 3 out of their last 5. Georgia has lost 4 in a row. Like, you're getting a couple teams that are scuffling a little bit, coming into Colonial Life Arena in kind of that sandwich of these last 4 games that if you ended the year with 3 wins in conference play and winning 3 out of your last 5, again, doesn't suddenly put you in the tournament or anything like that, but it's something to build off of to be able to say, hey, we did something right at the end of the year. Let's see if we can roll this into 2025 and 2026.
Yeah, taking that kind of, like you said, moving into next year, seeing from what those games kind of worked so that when you go into next season, you kind of don't go down that rabbit hole as SEC play kind of starts to unfold. But I think it's going to be, they're definitely going to have to go back to the drawing board regardless of how the rest of this season kind of pans out and just figure out, like you said, especially because they're not going to have Murray Boyles next year.
So in the last hour, we heard Coach Paris, refer to, hey, everybody's going to be thinking about what they did differently for this game, whether it be sleeping with a new pillow. Coach Paris mentioned he had a new pair of shoes for this game as, what helped them be successful and finally win. A listener of ours on Twitter on Saturday may have pointed out that I could be the reason to blame for why they've had so much struggle this year. Our guy Brian was replying to a tweet that Elijah Campbell had during the game, and through the conversation, he says, we may have to make Tyler Head shave the mustache. Was good luck for football, bad for basketball. For reference, when South Carolina went on their 6-game winning streak at the end of the football season, I did not shave at all during that period of time. I had grown my facial hair out for Halloween, and going back and forth with Wes and Chris one day, I said, you know what, if they keep winning, then I'll just keep it. So over the course of that long winning streak, I did not shave at all. Carolina was winning, obviously ended up losing the bowl game to Illinois. On December 31st, I shaved because they had lost, and I said, okay, well, the winning streak's over for football. I'm going to go ahead and shave. Basketball's last win came on December 30th. So from the period of time where I finally shaved after that long winning streak, basketball had not won a single game until Saturday night. So I might have to put part of the blame on myself because I'm very superstitious. I'm a very superstitious person, which is why I was willing to keep the mustache and beard going through the run of football. I didn't even think about it cursing basketball, but maybe I did.
Yeah, I've heard of, I think Big Ben and some of the Steelers players did it way back when they were playing, when they went on that Super Bowl run against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So I definitely think you and Big Ben maybe should start a club. But
well, it's like in hockey. You have playoff beards in hockey.
Yeah.
Where guys don't shave throughout the entire Stanley Cup playoffs, and that way the team that wins, they got all these long, mangly-looking beards and stuff like that. But, I didn't think it was going to curse the basketball team by me shaving on December 31st. Apparently it did. I apologize for that.
I think the fair way to test it out for next season is start the season completely clean shave and then just let it grow through the rest of the year. And then I don't think they're going to go undefeated, but you could definitely test it out.
I could. Again, I wasn't even thinking about this, and thank you to Brian for pointing that out. It's like, well, maybe I am the problem. Because I don't know about you. Are you superstitious? Are you a superstitious person when it comes to sports?
Yeah, sometimes. When I was younger and I was rooting for the Heat in terms of, them going to the finals and whatnot, every night before I go to bed, I would kind of look at the score and I would leave it on this specific spot on my floor, and I would check it right before I go to bed because, I was in middle school.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't stay up and typically watch the whole game, but I'd wake up the next morning like hours before I'd have to get up before school and be like, did they win? Did they win? But I couldn't move the phone. It had to be in the same spot on the floor where I left it.
Yep.
And if it was, usually they would win. But
and that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
But to you, it makes perfect sense. You were the reason why the Heat were winning because of your ritual and whatever you were doing.
If I picked that phone up off the floor to check the score, they probably lost.
They would lose. Like that, again, is superstition to a T. And I'm a very superstitious person. And to me, it was working for football. It didn't work for basketball. So to Lamont Pierce's team, I apologize. I'm sorry. I had been saying while this losing streak was going on, what if Pierce didn't wear the quarter zip? What if one game he had a suit? What if he wore a T-shirt? What if he just wore a regular hoodie? Like something to change up the magic. Maybe it was whatever shoes he was wearing on Saturday. I didn't get too good of a look at those, but wear those shoes again next game. That's all I got to say.
Maybe the wind was blowing to the east, and this weekend it decided to blow to the west, and that's why we made more free throws.
It can be one of those things. And again, superstitions are silly, and at the end of the day, they don't have an overall bearing on the results. But especially if you're playing, if you think you've done something different that's going to help you, by all means do it. If Lamont Paris thinks wearing those shoes are the reason why they won that game, then he's going to have a lot more confidence going into Tuesday night if he's wearing those shoes again.
We always want to see our teams win in sports, and when they lose, we want to blame it on something, even when there's nothing to blame it on. So when in doubt, blame it on superstition, I guess.
Well, I'll take the L for shaving on December 31st because the men's basketball team had not won since then, going up until Saturday night. But hopefully this is the start of something decent to close out conference play with, again, maybe winning 2 or 3 games to be able to say, hey, the season at least didn't end on a sour note. Women's basketball in action yesterday. They dominated Vanderbilt. We'll get into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point, Tyler Head, and Sam Shapiro on your Monday here in the game.
I mean, we really didn't make any adjustments. I think what we did was make layups. We didn't make as many layups as we did in the first half. So you make layups. I thought we rebounded the ball. I thought we just really gave multiple efforts when it came to rebounding and defending.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Points. Tyler Head and Sam Shapiro along with you here on your Monday. Time for our Who Sprung a Leak segment brought to you by our friends over at American Leak Detection. And I'll give that award to the Vanderbilt Commodores women's basketball team yesterday as out there in Nashville playing host to the Gamecocks. First half, actually, made it pretty competitive. A 35-25 game at halftime. Both teams shot pretty equally from the floor. Carolina at 34% and Vanderbilt the same way. Identical on the turnovers, pretty much almost the same across the board. But, man, that second half, Vanderbilt really sprung a leak as South Carolina pulled away, shot at a very impressive 63% from the field over the course of that second half en route to the 82-54 win to once again pick up a dominant win in conference play that should come to the surprise of pretty much no one.
Yeah, and it honestly looked like a clinic for Fawiley and Joyce Edwards. I mean, they both put on a show. They really just looked comfortable in the game they're kind of used to playing. Fawiley making flashy drives to the basket, but also shooting and getting her teammates involved. And Edwards bullying down low, 6 of 12, 17 from the field. I believe coming off the bench in that game. I mean,
yep.
She's been so much fun to watch and develop over this past year. And then Pow Pow also, not necessarily on paper looking like she shot the lights out, but definitely making some important shots in this game for this Gamecocks team too. But it really kind of, helped them kind of stay in front for the entire game.
Yeah, and it was kind of a tale of two halves when you talk about Joyce Edwards and Malaysia Fawiley. Fawiley setting the world on fire in the first half offensively with 15 points, coming off 6 of 8, shooting from the field. And Joyce Edwards did grab her 9 rebounds in that first half en route to a career high of 12 over the course of the game. But then she took over offensively in the second half, scoring 13 points, making all 4 of her shots from the field and all 5 of her shots from the free throw line. Fawiley did tack on 9 points herself as well to get to a career high of 24 in the game. And again, these girls, they're coming off the bench. Like, they're not even in your starting rotation, but they legitimately might be your best 2 players on this team, which, once again, as talked about a lot, speaks to the depth of what South Carolina women's basketball is. You know how deep they are on the bench. Routinely, the bench sometimes outscores the opposition. And again, when Fawiley and Joyce Edwards are playing at their best, this entire team follows suit.
Yeah, and I remember even last season, Coach Staley talking about Fawiley still trying to, gain more stamina kind of as a player and being able to, make those high-level flashy plays, more consistently kind of throughout the game rather than just kind of shorter bursts. So maybe this could kind of be part of the strategy, having these 2 players come off the bench. These are 2 players that could really be spearheading this entire team in the next season or 2. So I think this is kind of just a developmental kind of aspect to, okay, if we kind of have them join the party later in the game, then they can come and bring in that firepower while, the people that are the players that are a little bit older that have more experience, running the floor for, 25, 30 plus minutes a game, that kind of adding that firepower, 5 or 10 minutes into the game can be more beneficial than just starting out with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this was an expected type of win by 28 points against Vanderbilt on Sunday. And we're kind of in this weird holding pattern, right? Like, South Carolina still has, a tough challenge ahead of it in a ranked Kentucky team to round out the regular season. They'll take on Ole Miss coming up a little bit later on in the week for the last road game there. But we're just really kind of waiting and seeing what's going to happen at tournament time, right? And yeah, the SEC tournament to a degree is important, but we know Carolina's going to be in the NCAA tournament, and at the end of the day, all that really matters is what you do in the NCAA tournament, how far you go, can you make Final Four, can you make a national championship, win it, and all that kind of stuff. And on the heels of the 2 losses they've had recently between Texas and UConn, and you weren't here, last Monday because we were off to kind of break down the UConn game, but that was shocking. And it's not shocking that UConn could come in here and beat Carolina because UConn obviously a very good and storied program, but the way they did it, I think shocked a lot of people. Like, Carolina doesn't lose by 29 points to anybody. So like what does that mean? Is that what they needed to light the fire under them to go on a run to close out 2025 where they just maul everybody in their path. And in the 2 games they played since then, between Arkansas and Vanderbilt, they've obviously done that. But we go into this year's tournament with doubt in our mind that we haven't had the past couple of years of like, man, maybe they don't make it to a Final Four. What if they run into a UConn? What if they run into a UCLA, Notre Dame, whoever maybe before they get there and they trip up on them? Because that could realistically happen.
I definitely think the UConn Gamecocks game was like instead of David versus Goliath, a David versus David.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, like you were saying, a lot of people were surprised to see David also kind of do that to another David. But I think that just
maybe Goliath versus Goliath.
Yeah,
Goliath versus Goliath.
But I definitely think that it definitely is something they needed going into this regular season or this postseason, excuse me, just because I feel like the last 2 seasons they've kind of had more of a complete team across the board, and I feel like they definitely have the pieces that if they need to go on a run, they can definitely do it. It's so funny because I look at them and I look at the Philadelphia Eagles and I go, all it's going to take is just for them to start playing right at the right time and gelling together, and they could pretty much, I think they could be unbeatable if they figure that out. It's just funny. The whole thing is just funny.
Look, we know they're capable of legitimately being the best team in women's basketball because they have the talent to back it up. And it's tricky because 2 of your losses have come, two of your losses have come on the road, which to UCLA and Texas, which, that's not surprising because the road games are tough. It's losing at Colonial Life Arena that I think shocked a lot of people because that, ended your over 4-year winning streak or almost 4-year winning streak, on the at home. And in the fashion that you did, it was really surprising. But from here on out, once you get past Kentucky at the end of the regular season, everything's neutral site. You're either going to be in Greenville for the SEC tournament, or you're going to be playing on some neutral floor outside of the first 2 rounds if you're a number 1 seed. Past that, though, everything else is neutral site in the NCAA tournament. So it's like, okay, you lost some games on the road, you lost a game at home. How do you fail on a neutral floor against tough teams? Like, is that kind of the grand equalizer here like it's supposed to be? We'll have to see.
Yeah, I definitely think, especially this game too. Well, at least the game against UConn, it just reminded them, like, this program is not invincible. Like, they are gonna lose games, and they're gonna lose games, and whether it's the next year or 2, or if it's only 1 or 2 in that next year or 2, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the outcome either. But I definitely think this last 2-3 week stretch has just kind of reminded them they're not invincible, and they need to just be focused on what things they do need to keep in a row so that when they do come up against these teams like UConn again, they don't, get embarrassed like this.
Yeah. Again, taking on Ole Miss coming up later on this week on a Thursday here on, or not, that one won't be on the game. That'll be, I believe, on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG, and then wrapping up the regular season on Sunday, taking on number 14 Kentucky over at Colonial Life Arena. It'll be senior day to be able to honor the ones that are moving on after this season. So be sure to get out to that if you can. And then, it's all tournament play after that between the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament as they pursue another national championship, though the road to get there seems a little bit trickier this year than it has been in years past. Funny story. I don't know if funny is the right word. An interesting story coming out from this weekend in reference to Carson Beck and his girlfriend Hannah Cavender and their vehicles getting stolen. We'll dive into that coming up to wrap up today's edition of The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Sam Shapiro along with you on your Monday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyrant and Sam Shapiro along with you on your Monday here on the game. This story kind of got a little bit lost in the weekend. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on Friday, but I had to bring it up, especially now that there's new developments with it. Carson Beck, who, of course, was the quarterback of Georgia, is now transferred down to Miami, where his girlfriend, Hannah Cavender, plays basketball for the women's team, had their car stolen on Thursday night from a home burglary. Beck, who famously has a Lamborghini that he used to drive around Athens that probably stuck out like a sore pink thumb, probably fits in a little bit better in South Beach or the area, had his Lamborghini, his Mercedes, and then Hannah Cavender had her Range Rover stolen from the home. Apparently, they were able to get in and get the keys to the vehicles, drive away with them. Arrests have been made in reference to this, and imagine the vehicles are being recovered. But this is kind of one of those things that if you went back in time 10 years ago, before NIL became a thing, before athletes could benefit off their name, image, and likeness, to the benefit of many quite well, like Carson Beck here, saying a student athlete in college got his Mercedes and Lamborghini stolen from the home that he owns in Miami, probably be a surprising sentence.
It definitely sounds a little bit far-fetched. Definitely sounds not like an era that I would be going to, you or I would be going to school in. But, the only reason to me that the biggest reason that it's alarming to me is because you've had a lot of other high-profile athletes like, Joe Burrow was pretty recently, and then Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey, I'd also had high-profile burglaries over the last couple of months. So it's just unfortunate that, it's now younger athletes are also being targeted. And
that's the interesting thing because, and yes, Burrow and Mahomes and guys like that have had their issues, but, those guys live in probably mansions and very gated neighborhoods and all these kind of things where they can, at least to a point, protect themselves very well. And it sounds like Carson Beck owns some home down in Miami where they were at when this took place, but not every student athlete can do those kind of things, right? Not every student athlete has millions of dollars they're making on NIL to be able to warrant buying a home or something like that. So there's a lot of these athletes that are just living in the, student housing, the athlete housing, that kind of stuff, but they still command a lot of money, still have nice things and all that kind of stuff. And I almost kind of wonder if student athletes are becoming very easy targets, right? Because especially if you're another student on campus or aware of the schedule, especially during the season, like, hey, I know this player is going to be at practice for these hours of the day. I know they're going to have a road game this weekend, so he's not going to be home for a day or two then and all that kind of stuff. Like, these guys aren't under the same kind of protections in a lot of ways that professional athletes are in terms of, again, being able to have a gated, community neighborhood and a mansion with security systems and all that kind of stuff where, I do wonder if this becomes a growing trend of these guys and girls that make high NIL having their stuff stolen.
Yeah, it's definitely alarming kind of to your point, just the thought of people thinking about, where this player might be at what time and whatever.
Because you can figure that stuff out really easily in college.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Like, at least in the pros, there's a little more exclusivity because, practices are closed for the most part and all that kind of stuff. But in college, if you try hard enough, you can figure out an athlete's schedule. You can figure out when they're in class. You can figure out, okay, hey, I'm going to follow Carson Beck. I'm going to figure out what time his class is, and I'm going to follow him to whatever building that is. And when he goes inside, I know I got an hour and a half or whatever until he comes back outside. I'm going to steal his Lambo then.
Well, I was going to say, and if you're driving a Lamborghini or,
Yeah, you stick out like a sore pink thumb.
So it's easy to go, that might be Carson Beck going to, his next practice or his first class or whatever. But another thing that kind of brought to mind was, they're going to school in Miami. They have a Lamborghini and a Range Rover. They said they got robbed from their home. Like, I'm picturing most college students to be living in a house that's older than my parents.
Yeah.
So, when I read a report that they had a Lamborghini stolen from their home, I'm not picturing them living in a off-campus college house or a dormitory. I'm picturing them living in maybe like a higher profile mansion type of house you'd probably see Joe Burrow or somebody like that in.
It doesn't give details. It says they were at a home. Yeah. I'm assuming it's Beck's home. I don't know. He's only going to be there for like 1 year. So do you rent? Do you buy? I don't really know there.
Point I'm trying to make is like, even if they were in one of those like off-campus college,
yeah, you can still figure that out though.
Right.
If you really dedicated enough time, you could say, okay, I'm going to figure out where Carson Beck's going to be. I'm going to make sure I'm in position to when he goes to class or he's not paying attention. I'm going to try and take his car.
Yeah, the whole thing is just it's really unfortunate that people have to now start worrying about things like that, and it's just an unfortunate world we live in a little bit.
Have you ever had anything expensive stolen from you?
When I was in middle school, I remember I was going to the park. It wasn't me personally, thankfully, but my brother had his wallet stolen when we were playing pickup basketball because all the kids, we were, I think, 10, 11 years old. We used to hang up all our stuff on the, we'd have our phones, our wallets, like bottles of water, but we'd hang them up on the fence right next to the court where we would go and play. And we'd go and, play a couple pickup games over the course of an hour and a half, 2 hours. Over the summer, it was great. We'd get out there at like 10:30 in the morning. And this is, in New York City. So we'd, walk to a basketball court about 5-10 minutes away from the apartment building we grew up in. And, after an hour and a half, we'd go somewhere to like leave, get lunch, and then come back and play the rest of the day. Well, sometimes we'd go and get lunch and somebody's wallet would be gone.
Yeah.
Or if somebody brought an iPhone, the iPhone would be gone.
Yeah.
We started noticing kids that would come in to pretend to be playing these games would be coming to go through everybody's bags and would be taking smartphones that they could resell or people's money or people's wallets. My brother got really lucky, and there was a apartment building across the street from the park we played at, and he saw one of these kids running away from the park with my brother's wallet.
Yeah.
Well, he yelled at the kid. The kid dropped my brother's wallet while he was running.
That's lucky.
The doorman found the wallet, and my brother had his phone number in the wallet. So
wow, that's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, the Carson Beck thing kind of made me think of that.
Yeah. My wife got her camera stolen when we were in college.
Oh, God.
But it had a tracker on it. And she could see where it was, but they couldn't, and again, there's processes when it comes to recovery of stolen items, stuff like that, but they weren't able to recover it for whatever reason. Because she could see on her phone, like, hey, it's at this house on a street off campus or something like that. And she left it under a chair in a classroom, and it was gone. Never returned.
So do you think that person cut the tracker out and then threw the camera somewhere else? Or
No, I don't think they knew the tracker was in there, to be honest with you. Yeah, but
they get smarter every time.
It happens, but at least for Beck and Cavender's sake, they did find who that person was and get the vehicles recovered.
I'm glad they're okay.
Yeah, that'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Jump back in the Gamecock baseball conversation as they are 8-0 on the season after a sweep of Milwaukee. Up next here on the game. 11 o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you. And yes, that is indeed new music. You are hearing Wes, unfortunately not able to hear it today because he's connecting with us down the line. But yes, we finally changed up the music here for our show. Our long nightmare is over.
Yes, the long national nightmare.
Long national nightmare is
for all
over.
those listening, away from South Carolina. I was curious what you were going to go with first in the rotation.
So
Tyler.
it's random
It's a
selection.
random mix?
I took your list and my list. Still waiting on Wes's. I can add that in later, but it just rotates through them randomly. So I've got it. The first full morning of it, I've gotten a couple of your songs, a couple of mine already. So you just kind of never know what's going to happen in the next segment. So
Fun stuff.
Just wait for the excitement. But some good selections by you.
Opinion by 9 Inch Nails.
Good. That's a good build.
Get it started.
Get it started. I like the way we're kicking things off there. So Wes, give me your list, man. We'll get you in the rotation.
Yeah, I need to get on that, huh? But I do like how you just went random among the lists. So for one, you can't be accused of picking just your songs, and two, if people don't like it, you can still at least be like, well, guys, just the randomizer does it.
So I took the list of songs I put them in the system, but I don't select what comes back from each rejoin. It randomly does that himself out of the list of songs that are on there. So it's I don't know. Chris gave me like 10 or 12. I put in 8 or 10 or something like that, and we're just gonna rotate through those. And whenever Wes gives me his, we'll put those in there as well. So whenever you're ready, Wes, we're good.
Wonder if anybody.
I'm noticing a trend here.
Yes. We'll get off of Wes's back with that.
Yeah, we'll try.
But I think I don't think any of the Gamecock baseball players. I don't know if any baseball player ever has rocked some Pinion to come up to. I feel like that'd be a great bullpen song.
Yes.
Like building the momentum.
Yeah, as you're walking out, I think that would work quite well. I do like the mix of songs we get for walk-ups. Very good. And we talked about some of those on opening day. Whatever they're doing is working because Gamecock baseball still undefeated, 8-0 on the season. Another sweep this past weekend of Milwaukee. And yesterday, for the first time, or they had 12 hits in one of the games already, but 13 hits yesterday, 14 runs, run rule to wrap up the series. And you just really felt like the bats really came alive yesterday, which is something that we've kind of been waiting to see for this team, even despite the fact the 8-0 start. The offense to really start clicking consistently, which we finally saw yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, if you were one of those that, look, first of all, you should have been happy all along with this start.
Yes.
Kind of crazy. Like Gamecock baseball, obviously very storied program. Ray Tanner was here a very long time and obviously did great things. But, Paul Maneri is one of 3 coaches to have the start at South Carolina that he's had, and now just continuing to add to that. If you were someone who's going, of course I'm happy with the start, love the pitching, like to see a little bit more hitting. Well, you certainly got that yesterday, right? Because you get West the 14-4 8-inning run rule win, and the Gamecocks, started early and finished strong, and I think we saw all different types of hitting, right? We saw some power. My pick for the season, Nolan Naraki.
Yep.
Getting on the board with a homer. But we saw sac flies. We saw singles. We saw balls to the gap. Like, we saw South Carolina spraying the ball all over the park. And I think, hey, that's something that fans wanted to see, was exploding for 14 runs.
And Wes, that's something that Maneri talks about a lot. And look, we love when these guys can knock the ball out of the park and hit 3-run homers and all that kind of stuff. But putting together quality at bats is something that, when you're playing small ball, is very important. And we've seen it at times this year, but over the weekend we saw it really kind of string together, especially in yesterday's game.
Yeah, and kind of was interesting yesterday, guys. He really has, I think, treated the non-conference. Of course, you're trying to win games, and they've clearly done that. But I felt like he's treated the non-conference as a way of trying to continue to find out exactly who his best players are and what the best mix is. We saw a completely sort of just reshuffled lineup yesterday with some new guys getting in there, some guys getting in there at different positions, and lots of guys got time in the field this weekend. Lots of guys got ABs, and I think there is some depth to this team. Now, there maybe is you still have some questions once you get into SEC play of exactly how this team's going to match up, I think. And, it certainly seemed like that was a little bit of a typical Sunday where you get to the third game of a series and maybe a team that doesn't have quite as much pitching depth starts to run out of that depth, and Carolina made them pay. But, I would like to see this lineup, if they can, continue to do what they've done. Like, I don't think other than Petrie, you're going to have somebody else in this lineup who threatens to, hit 25 bombs. But could you have a lineup where you're going to get a good at bat and where there's the possibility of power for maybe 6, 7, 8 guys in the lineup? I think that's certainly possible. And, we're seeing some guys carry over what they did in the preseason. And we're seeing in a case of Jace Woida, who, just did a fantastic job of just flushing what was not a great preseason at all for him. I know when Jack put out the kind of unofficial numbers, statistically was one of the worst hitters in preseason, has completely put that behind him, and now is actually third on the team, hitting .357, third on the team in batting average, and right behind Petrie and Nathan Hall, who both are hitting in the 400s. So, I think we're learning about this team as we go, right? And that's what you want to do. You want to keep adding data points. You want to keep getting a feel for what this group could be all about. And I'm still fascinated just to see what this team ends up being as it progresses along the way and as we get into stiffer competition, which certainly we're going to see this coming weekend.
And one thing that they're still trying to nail down exactly is the 2-hole spot, something they've shifted around quite a bit. As great of a glove as Henry Kazmar has been in the field, still trying to find his footing, at the plate. You've had him play there. You had Blake Jackson, play there yesterday. Dalton Mayshort's played there a couple times. So you've got this great leadoff hitter in Nathan Hall, can get on base, can obviously run the bases very well, but you need a guy in that second spot that can obviously move the runners, and you just haven't been able to find a consistent guy there as of yet. And again, big series this weekend against Clemson. Conference play only a couple weeks away, so that's definitely something that Mainieri is still trying to figure out as far as this lineup goes.
Yeah, and like Wes said, I mean, Sunday especially was an opportunity to get some different guys in there. This is the time to try to figure that out, and obviously there's a possibility, I would say, guys, a likelihood that there's going to be some tweaks and shifts to this lineup, even in SEC play, unless things are just going so well that you don't really want to shake it up that much. And, maybe it's a guy getting a day off, like LeCroy is a catcher, right? Maybe it's, hey, we like this matchup better. We like a left on a right. It can be a variety of things. But there is, to your point, Wes, some depth here to where, you feel pretty good. Will Tippett, good example. Tippett goes to the lineup, 4 hits.
Monster game.
Yeah, it was Milwaukee. Yes, but the point is he's a very capable player. Like, you ever heard Monty Lee talk about Will Tippett? Like, he loves this kid as a player and hasn't been an everyday guy for South Carolina at the beginning, but will he still be an important part of this team? Could he end up being eventually a guy that plays even more? That's entirely possible. So I think you look at this as, yeah, there's some things that you have been figuring out along the way, some things you feel good about, some things you got to continue to solve. And you don't want to, the SEC in baseball is not the spot to workshop things, exactly.
Right.
But my point is, you feel like if it's not one guy, maybe it can be another. You have some depth to where you don't feel like, hey, this is pretty much our only option. You got several spots where you can plug some others in, and so that's probably a good feeling for this staff. Even knowing that they've got some things to continue to tinker with and figure out.
Well, and I think, guys, you've probably got a few players on here right now that are just, like, if you pull up the numbers, it's not that pretty, but baseball, when you talk about small sample size, those things you hope are going to really start to even out. Just like we knew Nathan Hall was not going to bat .550 for any long period of time. You sort of feel like Henry Kazmar batting .148, Tal LeCroy .056. Blake Jackson hitting 200. Even Ryan Bakes, who, is not a guy we've seen a ton of yet in his Gamecock career, incredibly talented player. And, is hitting 111 right now. Like those are guys that I think at least some of them, you talk about sort of that back of the baseball card where you have a resume, you have a history of showing that you can hit and get on base. And Kazmar was like a 300 guy plus at Ohio State. So I think maybe a case, a little bit of some guys pressing a little bit, maybe a case in terms of LeCroy of just some hard hit balls that are right at somebody and get caught. And, those things will start to even out, I think, as the season progresses. So I'll be curious to see, can Carolina continue to get more from some of these guys that maybe are just having a little bit of bad luck to start the year or just are picking the wrong time to scuffle a little bit and maybe they get hot down the line. Still a lot of talent among the bunch of guys that are kind of not doing what they want to do right now. But I thought Sunday was fantastic for a lot of these guys. You talked about Tippett, 4-hit day. Jordan Carrion has been able to get in there a little bit more as of late. Bo Hollins gets in there, has had a couple of hits. And, I think those things are just good for the health of your program because, one, you want to keep pushing. You want to keep seeing what your options are going to be. And two, not that you're going to speak it into existence, but we know guys are going to get dinged up. Guys will be banged up. Ultimately, you will need that depth. And, it's good for South Carolina to go ahead and start to figure out where they have depth and where they maybe have some issues. But, I couldn't have been more happy for Tippett as a guy who I still think is incredibly talented. And it just has not quite all clicked together. But if it does one day, I still think he could play a very prominent role on this team. And he has the advantage of being someone who really actually, if pressed, could play first base, second base, shortstop, or third base. And I think when you have that type of versatility, same with Jordan Carrion, a guy who can play a ton of different spots, that versatility gives you a chance.
And you mentioned continuing to push, Wes, for this coaching staff. Once again, Paul Maneri's press conferences. Look, we're going to watch more than one press conference this year where Paul Maneri's talking about a Gamecocks loss. It's baseball. They're going to lose some games. And I like the way he put it on the radio actually the other day. We're trying to stave it off as long as possible.
Nobody goes 56-0.
That's right. Yeah, you just try to delay the inevitable. You're going to lose a baseball game. You're going to lose more than one baseball game. But I continue to go back to just his disposition, his demeanor. He's a tough, demanding coach, right? But he tells it like it is while also praising guys. McCoy's a great example. He started out immediately praising Jake McCoy, the game that he had. He said, hey, the only time he got in trouble, he gave up the 3-run homer. And, hey, to take that next step as a player, the thing we've got to work with him on is having that killer instinct because he mentioned, hey, few innings, he got through the first two batters, mowed those guys down, and then you get yourself into trouble. You let the next guy on, and that drives up your pitch count.
Yep.
So he can praise a guy, but, hey, let's keep pushing. Let's take that next step. Same thing defensively. Gamecocks have been, for the most part, they've had a few misplays.
Sure.
You like what you've seen from them defensively. That was one area that I think fans were very excited about because it's been a hallmark of Paul Maneri teams throughout his career. Their teams have played very good defense. He's continuing to push there, too.
They're back in action coming up tomorrow night, taking on Gardner-Webb over at Founders Park, 6:30 first pitch for that game. By the way, we have a family 4-pack of tickets to give away right now to caller number 3, 803-404-6100. Captain Dave standing by to take your phone call on that. It was a big weekend on all fronts. Men's basketball finally ending the losing skid. We'll dive into that coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
107.5 The Game in Columbia, 100.5 The Game in Florence, and 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. The Game Network.
Listen to Gamecocks baseball on The Game. And if a Gamecocks batter hits a grand slam,
you could win cash. You could win cash. You could win cash. You could win cash in the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Go to 1075thegame.com and register. Brought to you by Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union and The Game.
107.5 The Game, broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevy Studios. You can save up to $20,000 on new Silverados. Stop by or shop online today and see how Herndon Chevy makes you smile. Together, let's drive.
All right, if you're looking to make your home smarter, that sounds good, right? Check out Integrate. Facebook, Integrated Media Columbia. That's where you can go to learn more about Michael and Nathan and their entire team at Integrated Media. They've been to my home. They've been to Wes Mitchell's home. They can come out to your home, too, and make it smarter. What do I mean by that? Well, a smart home is where you can control your lights, devices, thermostats, security, and cameras. Whether you're just home and say, hey, I don't want to go upstairs right now, but I know that I need to adjust the thermostat. Hey, you're away on vacation. You want to check the security and cameras. You want to adjust your thermostat up and down. You want to turn lights on and off in your house. You can do that from the touch of a button from your smart device. IntegratedMediaInc.com. Check out some examples of their past work, what they can do for you, again, on their Instagram or Facebook at Integrated Media Columbia, or give Michael and Nathan a call, 803-948-8327.
Get ready to smile because Herndon Chevrolet, your hometown Chevy dealer, is offering an amazing deal right now. Get up to $20,000 off new Silverados. Yes, you heard that right. Up to $20,000 off. Don't wait. Head over to HerndonChevy.com today and drive home in the truck of your dreams. Chevy, together let's drive.
Herndon Chevrolet, Herndon makes you wanna smile.
Call 803-510-5447 for complete details.
Don't wait. If your HVAC system needs repairs, AAA Heating and Air has a limited time offer just for you. Get up to 12 months. Payment plans on repairs with no credit check required. All you need is to be a homeowner with a valid bank account. This is your chance to stay comfortable without breaking the bank. But hurry, offers like this don't last long. So do what I did and call AAA Heating and Air today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
AAA Air when you need us. AAA Heating and Air.
I had the worst dream last night.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes, and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit GetEthos.com. That's GetEthos.com.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
Powered by Integrated Media. The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. For auto, home, and commercial glass. ShepherdsGlass.com. In Chapin and West Columbia. The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass.
The Cocky Trot 5K and Fun Run and Walk, presented by Palmetto Shirt Company, is back. Join Gamecock fans on Saturday, April 26th for the fun-filled morning racing around Gamecock Park and Williams-Brice Stadium. Learn more and register today at GamecocksOnline.com/CockyTrot.
It's a new year, Columbia, and if you hate to paint, do what your neighbor Jean did. She called Rhino Shield.
So the house was built in 1952. We had Rhino Shield out about a year and a half ago to paint our house from gray to white.
Remember, Rhino Shield's not paint. It's better.
My husband had to talk to me a little bit about Rhino Shield. Is this something we want to do? But it was a 25-year guarantee. I just didn't know how we could go wrong.
Columbia, get the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield now for 15% off the regular price.
We have 3 different exteriors to our property, and Rhino Shield painted them all. We were very pleased with the product and the job they did.
Here's owner Dan Hoey.
This offer's limited, so call today at 833-RHINO-99 or visit RhinoShieldCarolina.com. Don't paint.
Don't vinyl.
Go
Rhino.
Don't paint. Don't vinyl. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
The Gamecock Central Takeover Hour with Tyler Head, along with Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell from Gamecock Central. Sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Call or text 803-404-6100 on the Game Network and on the 107.5 The Game app.
2024 to hear us say, you can put Spurs on this one. The horns go down. The Gamecocks get a win in conference play. 84-69 is the final. A complete performance. Got a little shaky late, but South Carolina does not just win, they win convincing.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris. You can hear the relief in Derek Scott's voice on Saturday night as the call over at Colonial Life Arena finally, at long last, for the first time in 2025, we can say the Gamecock men are winners 84-69 over Texas, and they ended the long losing skid in conference play. They're not going to go 0-18. Maybe 1-17, but that's a whole lot better than 0-18. And you know what? For the time being, we'll take it.
Well, Wes, you continually said, and I was actually with you on this, they're going to get one at some point, and I think you just ultimately, no matter what, Tyler, if it's, a one-win season or if they end up getting a few more, I think we're all going to look back on this season as, they were a lot closer, than they're a better team. They're going to be viewed as a team that was better than what their record ended up being. And, man, if it hasn't been one thing, it's been another. And Lamont Paris has gone over that probably ad nauseum at this point as to just what types of things went wrong in games. And this team, I think a lot of people wondered if they were going to check out at some point, and that never happened. I mean, even I was at the game, had a good vantage point for the Texas game in person, and you could just, this was a team that did not look disinterested before the game. They were fully engaged, before the game. They were fully engaged during the game, and they have continued to play hard. Does not always mean they've played well. We know that they have not always played well. Yeah. There have been other games where they've played well, and they just haven't gotten it done. So I think, look, good for them, I think they deserved to go out and get a win. And to me, I kept thinking about this during the game. It started with their defense. And to play good defense in a game, you have to play hard. And that's where I think they get the biggest kudos, is because despite how frustrating this season has been, they've given effort. They played extremely hard. And I think, they started things off during that game with the way that they played defense and the effort they gave there.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and say, Tyler, I don't think they're going 1-17 either. I think the beauty of just finally getting a win is the relief you get from that. The amount of pressure, and maybe it's silly to say, it's a different kind of pressure. It's not the pressure of you have to win to get into the tournament and stuff like that, but just the amount of negativity that you kind of have to deal with if you're just winless that late in the season. And then the fact that the way they lost all those games, you would say from a micro standpoint, had very different sort of, I guess, things that went wrong for you. But from a macro standpoint, you go, how many games will you look at and you're just like, man, they had a lead. They had double-digit leads at times, and then just tightened up at the end of games. And you could even feel it in this one. You could see, CMB gets called by that silly touch foul, and silly on the call is what I'm saying. And, then he's out. Texas starts ramping up the pressure. There's a couple of turnovers, and you're going, all right, I think they have enough cushion in this one, but you're not sure because you've seen it before. And so to get that relief, I think they're going to beat another team along the way as well. And just guys to not go in the history. Nobody wants to go in the history books for the wrong reason. Nobody wants to be the pitcher that gives up the record-breaking home run. Nobody wants to be the one that, oh, man, remember that team that didn't win a game? No matter how close you are, no matter how close to winning some of those games you are, you would have always been remembered as that's the team that didn't win a single conference game. Now that part's over. Is it going to be a forgotten year? Yeah, frankly, yeah, it will be. But at this point, you'd rather have a forgotten year than be the team that gets remembered for all the wrong reasons.
Well, and they have an opportunity in these last 4 games. They go to Missouri tomorrow night. They'll wrap up the regular season on the road at Tennessee. Those games are obviously going to be challenging, taking on ranked teams. But you've got Arkansas, who's lost 3 of their last 5. You got Georgia, who's lost 4 in a row, coming to Colonial Life Arena, where, again, they'll play their best basketball. So, realistically, you could potentially end, if all things go right, maybe with winning 3 out of your last 5 games. Does that do anything to change the course of this season? No. Doesn't put you in the tournament. And outside of going on a miracle run in Nashville, doesn't put you in the tournament that way either, but you can at least say, hey, we finished the year on a strong note, and whatever that means for momentum going into 2025 and the offseason where you're going to have to really reassess a lot of things, it's better than, again, just saying, hey, we went 0-18, we got to break everything down and rebuild all over again.
I think everybody knows at this point it's pretty clear that, you know, you go winless, or if you won every single game going forward, there are things this offseason that need to be done, right? It doesn't really change the equation, like you said, Tyler, but I think you just feel better, right? Establish some momentum going into the offseason for these guys that, worked hard at the beginning of the season and, as I said, have continued during this incredibly frustrating, disappointing, whatever adjective you want to throw in there, this stretch. They've continued to play hard and try to get that result. And so you want to go out and earn another, result. Does it do anything for your short-term prospects this season of going to play in the postseason? It doesn't, right? But there's a reason that you go out and play the games. And go back to my original point there. You watch that team take the court this weekend. They wanted to win, right? And they weren't sitting there thinking, we can't make the tournament. We're just going to go mail it in. I don't think this team has mailed it in at all. There's a difference in playing hard, playing well. And, again, they haven't always gotten – they've played well at some times for large stretches of the game. I mean, they led the Florida game all but 4.6 seconds.
Yep.
Played pretty well against a really good team. They just haven't gotten those results. So it's good that they were able to, to finally find that result and built that cushion to where they were able to overcome some things and hold on to beat Texas.
Well, guys, can you build some momentum going into the offseason? Like, I hate to go ahead and look ahead to next year, and nobody's going to look at the final record and point to that as like a sign of progress. But to Tyler's point, if you can win maybe 1 or 2 of these final 4 games and get to 2 or 3 total wins and just say, hey, look, we saw some positive things, because now we know there's going to be big changes in the offseason in terms of the roster. Like, they're going to have to go out and get some transfer portal guys, stuff like that. The discussions for what that's going to look like are already well underway. That's not lost on the staff. They know that they need more talent, just to say it like it is. And so what happens professionally if an NFL team or an NBA team or an MLB team is out of the hunt? You're out there. I don't want to say you're playing for yourself, but if you're on a roster, you are playing to put your best foot forward so that you are in the plans for next year. Like, I think, seeing a guy like Ugasuk hit some big shots on Saturday and kind of get his confidence back, it looked like. Seeing Jordan Butler, who I think first of all, he got off the snide in terms of getting an SEC win.
1-32 in SEC play now.
But he's 1-0 in the last one,
That's
Tyler.
Right. That's right.
So, he had a huge block, man. Like, he was playing physical. He missed 2 or 3 3-pointers in a row, but then he hit one at the end. Was playing defense. Was rebounding. I think being a little more aggressive than we've seen. So if you're one of those younger guys, you want to be in the plans moving forward.
Again, next game coming up tomorrow night, taking on Missouri, 9:00 tip pregame coverage starting at 8:30 right here on the game. And then again, Georgia and Arkansas back-to-back at home before they wrap up the season against Tennessee on the road coming up the following weekend. Women's basketball in action yesterday, taking care of another conference opponent as they try and rebound from the loss last weekend against UConn. We'll hit that coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
107.5 The Game in Columbia, 100.5 The Game in Florence, and 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. The Game Network. Hate paying for streaming? Well, the 107.5 The Game app is free. Yes, free. Just download the 107.5 The Game app. Griffin Pools and Spas, your authorized Latham and Imperial dealer, is having their biggest sale of the year on all in-ground pools and hot tubs. Come by their location at 1348 North Lake Drive to visit factory reps and save thousands on in-ground pools with huge discounts and incentives on spas. Buy now, save, and enjoy your pool or spa all summer long. Let their family help your family build an outdoor oasis. Come see them February 27th through March 2nd at Griffin Pools and Spas.
Griffin Pools and Spas. We make you feel good.
At Atkins Law, we believe who you hire matters, but don't take our word for it. Hear it from our clients.
From the front desk to the paralegals answering my questions to the one I have in my back, I couldn't ask for a better team of professionals.
From my first phone call to meeting Joe in person, I knew I was going to be in good hands.
Holly has a great practice, and her various experiences brings tons of knowledge to each of her clients.
Remember, who you hire matters.
Call Atkins Law, 803-251-6406.
What you're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. Check out the Season of Love at South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer. I-26 in Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
Twin Peaks is the best in the game. Here, the ultimate lunch lineup boasts wall-to-wall sports and scenic views. When you're hungry and in a hurry, the Scratch Kitchen delivers lunch in the clutch. I mean, where else can you order a 29-degree draft beer and a quickie combo on your lunch break? Only at Twin Peaks, the #1 sports bar.
Twin Peaks Scratch Kitchen scores every time. Dig into hand-smashed burgers, chef-inspired flatbreads, and more at your local lodge.
He's coming. Here he comes. Surprise! Your table saw broke. Also, the warranty expired weeks ago, so you need to pay for a new one out of pocket.
At Progressive, we know small business owners don't usually like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting a commercial auto quote from Progressive.
Oh, and the replacement part you ordered doesn't fit, so it's completely useless. What a waste.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Millions of Americans take medicine like Ozempic and Zepbound. Many of them are overpaying by thousands of dollars a year. These GLP-1 medications for diabetes, weight loss, and more may not always be covered by your insurance, but GoodRx can help. GoodRx helps you save every month on prescriptions at over 70,000 pharmacies nationwide. Best of all, it's free to use. Check GoodRx to save on GLP-1s. Just go to GoodRx.com/GLP. That's GoodRx.com/GLP. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance, including Medicare and other federal and state-funded programs.
Hey, Daydreamer. Did we catch you thinking about your dreams? With Wells Fargo Premier, a team can help you plan for them. So let's imagine your biggest dream. Not the easy one, the one behind it. The one you work towards every day and every night. Can you see it? Then we can help you plan for it. Ready to start planning for your dreams? You can at wellsfargo.com/getpremier.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Being young with unlimited energy to burn. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think you could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
All guys lose their edge when they turn 40. The body has less testosterone. That's why I take Nugenix Total T.
I've heard about Nugenix. That really works?
Since I started taking Nugenix, I'm lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. I feel more energized at work. It's even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try?
Yep, send a text. It's that easy.
Text AREA to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. It's the #1 selling testosterone boosting brand at GNC and Walmart. Do it now and they'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, their newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text AREA to 42424. That's AREA to 42424.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
What you're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet on the Game Network.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you here on the game. We'll remind you once again about the Gamecock Traditions Over-Under contest. over the weekend. The over hit for Gamecock pitchers striking out Milwaukee hitters. The over was at 28.5. You can listen this week for the over under the week and submit your guess later on on 1075thegame.com to, again, win yourself a Gamecock Traditions gift card. Successful weekend on all fronts. We haven't even mentioned the softball team, who continues to be undefeated, 15-0 to start the Ashley Chastain Woodard era. Found themselves down 4-0 in the first inning to UNLV yesterday. Battled back to win that game convincingly. Only gave up 2 hits in the final 6 innings of that game, so they are just on quite a roll right now. Congratulations to them. And I guess the least surprising results of the weekend, women's basketball thoroughly dominating Vanderbilt yesterday out there in Nashville. I give credit. Vanderbilt made it close in the first half, but the Carolina just kicked into another gear in the second half. 63% shooting from the field. Malaysia Fulwiley and Joyce Edwards had monster days, and this team looks back to true form after coming off of a couple of tough Sundays a few weeks before.
Yeah, and you looked up in that game at one point, and Vanderbilt had cut it to 8 in the third quarter. Early in the third quarter, had the ball, and you're sitting there going, okay, they've got an opportunity to cut this thing to 5 or 6. But from there, South Carolina kind of slammed the door and did what we've seen them do so many times. And that is, a team can kind of bring their best effort, but the Gamecocks can just overwhelm you with their playmaking ability, their defense, how they can score, how many different ways they can beat you. And we saw some of all of that in this game. And, it's been a theme of Dawn Staley's teams of not only having that depth, but young players who you can look up on any given night and go, that young player's the best player on the court right now, So Fulwiley, is a household name here. Still a young player, Overall, we forget that sometimes. Joyce Edwards is a true freshman who at times shows flashes of being a dominant player as a year one player on a really, really good team against great competition. So, big nights for them again. Fulwiley is, I think I mentioned last week when we were at Firehouse, she can be that X factor for this team to where if things maybe aren't exactly clicking in a whole game or just in a stretch in a game, she can take over. And she did that in this game with her outside shooting, some of the defensive plays she made, ability to get to the basket. She's such a unique player. And I don't think there's anybody in the women's game that can do what she does. If you just look at her skill set, she makes at least a couple plays a game where you're like, who else can even do that? And so she's just such an important part of this team, especially when they, sometimes need a spark.
As they're showing her highlights on SEC Network right now.
24 points, 10 of 15 shooting, 3 of 4 from 3, which is, ties her career high. She was outstanding, no doubt.
Phenomenal.
Well, and the team, I think, guys, played really good defense. They made the freshman sensation for Vandy, Michaela Blake, who had a solid day, but she's dropped 50 in 2 games this year, 50 plus each in 2 games, not total. Like she has been a revelation for Vanderbilt, and South Carolina sort of made her work for everything, held her under her average. And I thought that was a huge key to the game as well. But, Fulwiley, I don't want to speak too soon, but I feel like these last 2 games, boys, like we are seeing her potentially come into her own and take the next step as a player. Like I feel like you have seen the flashes, like the big plays we always talk about, the Sports Center top 10 style dazzle plays. But we're also seeing her be efficient. We're seeing her play really good defense. We're seeing her keep her teammates involved. The decision-making the last couple of games has been fantastic. Like that was not a 24 points on a night where she had to control the basketball the entire time. That was a 24 points where she was making good decisions, was not forcing shots, and was moving the basketball around. And I still think there's a lot of talent on this team, as we know, but I still think if South Carolina gets itself in a situation like it did against UConn or to a lesser extent at Texas where they're down in a game and they're in the tournament and they need to turn to somebody to take over. I think you point to Fulwiley, and I think you point to Joyce Edwards as the two talents on this team who absolutely you would look to say, can you go take over this game? Can you do, obviously in a different way, but can you do what Cardoso did at times last year when South Carolina said, yes, we share the basketball. Yes, we're a balanced team, but we need somebody to take over in this moment and go win a game for us. I think those are your two girls that you feel like can do that. And by the way, did y'all see Fulwiley's interview 2 games ago where she credited NBA 2K for the inspiration for some of her moves? So not only is she just insanely talented, but she's playing a video game, watching the crazy moves on the game, and then translating them into real life with thousands of people watching her play the game. Like just the audacity of some of the moves is worth talking about.
You never stop learning. And I go back to, Wes mentioned she's been on a tear these past 2 games. She was very upset after the UConn game last week. Dawn Staley said it really struck a chord with her. And we talked about this last week. She's maybe never lost a game by 29 points in her entire basketball career because of the high-level teams that she's played on. So was that something that already a very talented player that helped take her to another level by realizing her faults and things that have been going wrong this year with the ups and downs she had, that now she's locked in more than ever? Because if she is, this team's already dangerous, but more dangerous than ever with her playing that way. Joyce Edwards, in addition to and again, they're coming off the bench. People forget they are coming off the bench. You have 5 starters that are also very capable doing what they do, and these 2 stars coming off the bench adding even more to why this team is so tough. And if they're playing like this, continue to play like this, they're going to be tough to beat. Now, they're going to run into some high-level teams again, especially as they get deep into the tournament that have given them problems this year. But again, I give this team the benefit of the doubt more often than not, and if they can, continue to play like this, there's no reason why they can't make it back to another Final Four.
Well, there was nothing positive about, you didn't really have any positive takeaways from that UConn game, right? I mean, remember Dawn Staley gave them an F, for that game. But there was a sense, I mean, to piggyback off your point, Wes, about Fulwiley in her last several games, second half of that game, you could tell she just, hey, I'm going to try to take over here, right? And it wasn't enough ultimately because of everything else that happened in that game. But ever since then, she only had 11 points against UConn, right? But you could see some flashes of, okay, Fulwiley's being pretty assertive here, and she's trying to make some things happen. Then she comes out against Arkansas, has 15 in just 20 minutes, played just 19 minutes against Vanderbilt, has that 24-point game. She's been efficient. She shot 60% against Arkansas, 67% almost against Vanderbilt. I think you make a good point, Tyler. She, if she is kind of going to become even more assertive and dangerous, that only adds to, this team, because, this team is different than some of Dawn's other teams. They're not going to be as dominant, I think, on the boards. They're not going to be as dominant in the low post. So how do you make that up? What other areas? Well, one of them is having a special talent in Malaysia Fulwiley, your depth, other things, right? But she's certainly an important part of that.
Absolutely. And again, they got Ole Miss on the road this week, and they'll wrap up the regular season at home on Sunday, taking on Kentucky, and then it's off to the SEC tournament up the road in Greenville. We'll come back, wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Monday here on The Game.
107.5 The Game in Columbia, 100.5 The Game in Florence, and 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. The Game Network.
The Game Roadshow, sponsored by Schroeder's Towing, the best and fastest hookers in town.
The Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head will be live at Griffin Pools and Spas, Thursday, noon to 3.
On the Game Network and on 107.5 The Game app.
This is Maggie Gray with a Sports Minute. One of the most disappointing stories of the NBA season has to be the Philadelphia 76ers. Think about it. They had Joel Embiid coming off a gold medal performance at the Paris Olympics. Tyrese Maxey signed a long-term extension, and they landed perennial all-star Paul George to help them finally get past the second round of the playoffs. The result, a team that is near the bottom of the NBA standings in an offseason where major changes feel necessary. I'm Maggie Gray.
Right now, get up to a $15 gift card after rebate when you purchase select Superstart batteries exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
At Uline, the prevailing opinion is, if you don't live it, you don't believe it. The people at Uline believe in hard work, and they live it by being there 24/7 to answer your call, having 41,000 items in stock, and offering same-day shipping from 12 locations across North America. Business owners, sellers, buyers, shippers, and packers believe it. Uline is the hard-working, dependable source for your shipping and industrial supplies. Visit uline.com.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-9318. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-9318. That's 800-575-9318. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Lowe's knows how to help you get the most out of your store run. That's why members save more with My Lowe's Rewards. Earn points towards My Lowe's money on eligible purchases. Get access to member-only deals and free member gifts. Plus, unlock free standard shipping when you reach Silver Key status. So what are you waiting for? Join for free today. Lowe's. We help. You save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Hi, it's me, your USPS Ground Advantage shipment. Just left the warehouse and hitting the road.
I know. Just got the notification.
Great. Smooth sailing so far. I'm almost there.
Yes, I know. I get all the updates.
Made it. Safe and sound.
I know.
Well, did you know I was with USPS the whole time?
Oh, yeah. I know.
Keep your business in the know with the USPS Ground Advantage service. Visit USPS.com/in-the-know.
The Gamecock Central Takeover Hour with Tyler Head, along with Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell from Gamecock Central. Sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Call or text 803-404-6100 on the Game Network and on the 107.5 The Game app.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, Wes, and Chris along with you. I'm getting the thumbs up of approval from Wes on this one.
Who picked this one?
This was on your list.
Yeah.
Chris got taste.
Two thumbs up.
I I spread out. We had multiple genres represented. So.
Yeah. I
having fun.
I did just have to get the instrumental because, some lyrics aren't safe for radio, but the instrumental still hits pretty hard.
That's right.
So
it sure does.
We're off to a good start in the new day of the new music here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Reminder.
Tyler, let me interrupt you real quick.
Yep.
It was hitting me that. So, was that the Linkin Park Jay-Z mix earlier, or just Linkin Park?
It was the mix.
It was the mix.
So not only does it have to be a good song, it's got to be a good song that hits in the first 10 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah. And I trusted Wes. We trust Tyler here. There were some songs where I'm like, this is a good one, but Tyler's going to have to pick the correct section of the song.
Yes.
And so far,
yes,
kudos.
So it's got to hit within about 10 seconds to make its point, because we don't let it linger for too long. But we're off to a good start. So yes, Wes, whenever you want to give me your list, I'm ready for it, and we can get you in the rotation there. Reminder, and we talked about baseball a little bit earlier. Jace Wood hitting the Grand Slam on Friday won somebody $150, by the way, because we are once again doing our Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. The money now resets, which means each and every game, $25 gets added to the pot until a Gamecock hits a Grand Slam. You can go online to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. A couple more minutes to go here before we wrap up today's show. And of course, we talked a little bit at the end of last week, you guys sitting down with Coach Beamer, talking about a number of things, and you guys are slowly rolling out, different stories and on different topics that you discuss with him. And Wes, you dropped one this morning about some of the off-season workouts these guys are doing, who's standing out, and also kind of the fun games they're playing along the way to make things more interesting than maybe some off-season workouts have been.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to hopefully go check out some of our stuff with Beamer. The winter workout scoop, not from Beamer. That's just something we've been kind of gathering as we always do throughout the off season, and fans love stuff like that in my experience. And so, like I said, hopefully everybody will go check that out on GamecockCentral.com. But I tell you, somebody who just consistently we have heard about from multiple sources. And, also it's not just us. Pete Nakos from On 3, he put out some stuff with intel throughout college ball in terms of newcomers. But Chris, doesn't it seem like we've heard his name from multiple places at this point? And, I think the conversation for me remains like, what does his role ultimately end up being? But size, athleticism, off the charts so far, and lots of we call it hits in terms of an evaluation process there. Lots of hits so far in terms of these newcomers, at least as far as you can tell through, I guess we're looking at about a month and a half now of true winter workouts so far.
Yeah, obviously all this is the caveat. They haven't hit the field, put pads on, gone through spring practice. So a lot of it is workouts, conditioning, football-esque things that aren't really
competitions.
Quite football. Yeah, competitions and things like that. But, Darden, man, is one of those guys where, last season he was on campus a bunch for games. And if you ever saw him on the sideline, you go, is that a player who's, not suited up for today? Like, he looks physically advanced, looks the part, did a lot in high school for his Havelock team. And you look at him and go, is he a linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? Right now for South Carolina, a linebacker, but a guy that, just big, fast, physical, just checks so many of the boxes that you look for from a physical standpoint. And, of course, we're going to learn more about him and so many others once they actually get on the field, put the pads on, go through spring ball. There's a lot more to learn. But early indications are, like the way you put it, Wes, like he looks like a hit. It just athletically, he looks like everything that South Carolina envisioned him being, maybe even better, than they envisioned him being. And they seem to like him a lot during the recruiting process anyway.
Yeah, and I think, man, this is an example of what they are looking for at that position. And there has been a little bit of a shift, it feels like, in the last two cycles where they've been a little bit more willing to just bet on that overall speed, athleticism profile. And it's not necessarily, hey, I've got to get a guy who has played, 3 years at linebacker and is making 115 tackles a year and is incredibly developed at that position. If I had to choose, obviously I'm taking somebody that's got it all. But, if you're kind of saying, all right, I'm going to lean one way or the other, South Carolina has decided to bet on overall upside athleticism with the hope and thought that they can then turn around and develop them. This is a defense that lets the linebackers play freely, lets them get downhill, lets them play aggressively. And I think something that they've sort of focused on.
Again, you can read that whole story on GamecockCentral.com. Again, those guys are rolling out content over the next couple weeks from their conversation with Beamer last week as well. And again, you can read about the standouts through early winter workouts. Haven't hit spring quite yet as we get set for spring ball coming up here in a couple of weeks. But that'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Coming up next, halftime show, myself, Terry Ford, on your Monday here on The Game.
.1075 The Game, broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevy Studios. You can save up to $20,000 on new Silverados. Stop by or shop online today and see how Herndon Chevy makes you smile. Together, let's drive.
If you are hungry, you know where I'm going to recommend Firehouse Subs every single day. You can check out lunch, dinner. If you need a catering option, you can trust the folks over at Firehouse Subs. 15 different locations all around the Midlands. That's one of my favorite parts. Aside from the food, aside from the people, super convenient because you can use the Rapid Rescue to go to avoid the wait and order online. And that means wherever you are in the Midlands, whether you're downtown, you're out in Lexington, you're out closer to Sumter, wherever you are, there's going to be a Firehouse Subs close to you. Start your order online now at firehousesubs.com.